Welcome everyone. Thank you guys for being here. On behalf of Iowa Pork, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and speak with us. So thank you. We'll go ahead and just quickly start with introductions. So I am Hannah Spurr. I'm the Consumer Outreach Director here at Iowa Pork, and I'm going to be moderating the discussion today.
Hi everybody, my name is Emma Lasco. I currently work at the Iowa Pork Producers Association with Hannah. I handle producer outreach. So I'd give you a little bit of an introduction of how I got there and kind of what my career path has consisted of. So I actually grew up in Illinois with no farm background, so I didn't grow up with any livestock, but found my way into the swine world by attending Iowa State. I always say there's about 7 pigs for every person in Iowa, so it's really easy to get sucked into the hog business. So I did various internships, some on the sow farm side and others on the wean to finish side, that got me interested in the industry. So when I graduated college, I started working for Smithfield, but in the production side. So I worked with farmers in the northern part of Iowa, probably close to 100 different farmers in 3 years, and just worked on pig care with them, animal health. We worked on equipment. We just made sure we could get the pigs in the best environment. So I did that for about 3 years. And then after that, I found my way into the Iowa Pork Producers Association. So it's a little bit of a job change. I went from being in the field every day and working with pigs and farmers to having more of an office job. But I still do get to work with farmers. I just, instead of helping them with pig care and making sure the pigs have feed and water, I help them make sure that they have access to resources within our industry to help them, whether that's with putting manure on their ground or that's with how to put up a barn and find ways and regulations to work through that. I also help them if they have questions on their farm or with policy. So whether that's building a barn or that's finding ways to raise pigs responsibly in Iowa and working with our state legislators to do that, I get the ability to work with pig farmers in all those different ways. So that's a little bit background on myself. I would like to pass the torch to Jesse Dohlman to introduce him.
Yeah, Jesse Dohlman. I'm the Senior Director of Hog Procurement at Smithfield Foods. I've been in that role for a couple years in the Senior Director role. I guess I grew up on a farm in Iowa. You know, we raised pigs and, you know, milk cows. We actually farmed as well. Probably got me really into the hog side of things, though. I'd had what would be an Iowa Select farm that would have been not too far from where I grew up, and that's kind of where I got my start. So I just started by washing pens, right? So I started there by washing pens after school. And, you know, then I worked in a breeding department for several years through high school, and then in like the first year of college on weekends or holidays, anytime I could get a chance, I was trying to pay part of my way through college. So I went to Iowa State University, an animal science degree there. What probably changed my course, or at least my career path at Iowa State, is I was involved in clubs there, and then I got involved in the meats judging team there. And I guess I kind of really found my passion for the meat side of the business at that point. I had a good mentor in FC Parrish at the college at the time, and you know, he certainly led me along, and I kind of took 2 paths at Iowa State where I decided to, you know, have some meat focus, and I was also pretty interested in the nutrition side of things. So I took quite a bit of courses in those at the time. Actually, when I left college, I worked for Cargill Animal Nutrition for a short stint. They stuck me in Syracuse, New York, and I was working with dairy businesses because there's very few people that wanted to go there. I didn't stick with that very long. And then later in my career, then after I left there, then I got into sales at Premium Standard Farms, which would have been a meat company at the time. So I was selling fresh meat, fresh and frozen pork out of the Milan, Missouri plant, and then our Clinton, North Carolina plant. And then it would have been almost 13 years ago, Smithfield had purchased Premium Standard Farms. And at that time, then I switched to the hog procurement side of things. So I've enjoyed both. I mean, I know a good amount about pork. That really helped me in my hog procurement career. knowing the markets, knowing what our customers demand. Some of the things just really haven't changed. I mean, the business is relatively the same over the last 20 years. It hasn't changed a whole lot from that standpoint of like the products that they make, the demand cycles that they incur. And then just over time, I've taken on more responsibility as we've gone, as positions open up, being at the right place at the right time has made a difference. Taking on special projects, I think makes you a little bit more visible, and really just working with our pork producers in Iowa and all states, right, to help grow their business, that helps grow our business as well. So I think it's a little bit about me. So.
Okay, I guess it's my turn, right? I did this a little differently. am not from a pork background. I actually grew up in Dallas, Texas, and being from Texas, we are do a lot with the other protein, which will not be named. So I didn't know a whole lot about pork and pork. What I knew from pork is back when it was the other white meat, right? And it's come a long way from that. I moved to Iowa about 18 years ago and married the daughter of a pig farmer. And that's how I got introduced to pork, was literally when I'd go visit. She's from the eastern side of the state. We'd go visit and I'd see the hogs. I'm sorry, my name is Dean Luttrell. I'm a chef instructor at the Des Moines Area Community College. I'm also the president of the American Culinary Federation of Iowa, and I am the bailli of the Chien des Rôtisseurs, which is a gastronomic club here in Des Moines. It's been in Paris since about 1248, but it's only been in the U.S. since the 1950s. So the bailli's basically, if you're familiar with the Flintstones, it's like the Grand Poobah of the Buffalo Lodge kind of thing. But yeah, I'm kind of a pork neophyte, I guess, with all this, because when I was working as a chef in Texas, I was in the seafood houses and I dealt with a lot of seafood. And then, like I said, the other protein. It wasn't until Iowa that I started working with pork, and I was invited to an event a while back, and I actually just fell in love with it. So now I'm to the point where I'll butcher my own pigs and process the entire hog and do all kinds of fun stuff with the hog. And I teach my students that, how to process hogs, and it's not just pork loin. There's a whole bunch of pieces to this pig, right? The loin is not necessarily the best cut, in my opinion. So there's a whole different pieces to the pig that they do. But that's a little bit about my background. I kind of did it the hard way. I was not intending on being a chef at all. I was going to join the Marines, and then I dislocated my shoulder in a high school wrestling accident and walked into a kitchen and never left. And I didn't go to culinary school till later in life, but I did go to culinary school. I kind of did the journeyman approach to this. That's my story.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Lexi Ammann. I'm originally from Eastern Iowa, DeWitt, Iowa. Grew up showing pigs my whole life. My family was into showing livestock, so that's kind of how my exposure to the pork industry started. So went to Iowa State, have a major in animal science and agriculture communications. Was very heavily involved in some different agriculture and swine based clubs throughout college. So I was in the National Agri-Marketing Association competitive team, NAMA, and was also president of Block and Bridle. So I had a lot of great experiences at Iowa State, as well as was on the junior board for the National Junior Swine Association. So that was a national organization that puts on shows for youth to exhibit all over the country. So I was able for the 2-year term that I was on that to travel and get to meet other exhibitors and families that enjoyed showing livestock as well. So through Iowa State, I did some different internships. My freshman year, I worked at our county extension office and was the youth coordinator there. Then my sophomore year of college, I worked for Swine Genetics International and was a marketing intern. And then my junior year, worked for Smithfield Foods and was the retail sales intern in Kansas City. So after I graduated college, I started working for Swine Genetics International, which is the company that I interned with previously. So I kind of had a dual role there. Swine Genetics, they sell semen, frozen and fresh, across the country and across the world. So was able to, starting out was the marketing specialist. So did a lot of our social media, different content, creating different content. And then I was also the export coordinator. So I worked with all of our foreign customers to help coordinate all of their semen sales sending overseas. So just about a year ago, I moved down to Illinois. So now I'm an Illinois resident, almost official, got married and now work for the Maschhoffs. So I've been at the Maschhoffs for about 10 months. I'm a supply chain associate. When I started at the Maschhoffs, I was on the marketing side of supply chain. So I worked with all of our production managers and helped market all of our pigs to the packing plants, and just recently shifted into a new role into supply chain, and am now an flow associate. So I do all of our wean planning and feeder pig planning and placements from our sow farms. So have had a lot of great experiences through our internships and things in college, whether it was at a corporate level or for nonprofits, different small businesses. So have had a lot of experience, and I always like to tell everyone I'm allergic to pigs, which seems strange for how much I've been involved in the industry. So I always tell everyone there's a place for everyone, even if you can't be in the barns every day for health reasons. There's a place for everyone if it's what you love to do. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. It's so great to hear just all the many different avenues that someone can take to be in the pork industry, no matter how they're dealing with pork. So that's great. So we were able to have some advisors and students submit some questions on their registration form for you guys. So I think I'll just go ahead and ask some questions. Anyone feel free to answer them. You can piggyback off each other, whatever you want to do. And then we'll just go down the list here. So the first question was, what academic classes have proven to be the most beneficial for you in your current career?
Can I start that one?
Yeah.
Math. You got to know your math. In my portion of this, we do recipe conversions. I have to know if I do have a pork loin or a butt, and I have to get X amount of portions out of that because I have X amount of people coming. I have to know basic math. I also have to know, take a writing class, because you write menus, you talk to the public, you do more, all kinds of fun stuff, and a speech class would help too. So math, speech, and writing, because you never know. Just because in my position, if you're in the kitchen, you don't live in the kitchen, they'll pull you out front, and you got to talk and articulate and use your math skills. I use math every day, every single day of my life. I use math.
I would second all of that. I send emails and talk to people every single day. So communication, speech, writing. But I think for me, what the most beneficial things were are maybe some things that you guys are doing in your FFA classes or your hands-on ag classes is just hands-on activities. Like I said, I didn't come from a farm background, but everything I learned was from hands-on, whether that was through internships or job shadowing or helping a farmer out. That's how I learned best, and it was really, really beneficial to me. So I'd encourage you to do that. I also always like to point out that I think what you enjoy learning and what comes easiest to you is usually what you're best at. So I really enjoyed the sciences, and that's what I loved was biology all through high school, and it turned out to work into an animal science major for me in college. So hands-on experiences in science would be my answer.
Yeah, I'll echo what both Dean and Emma had said. I think there's a lot of learning that is important to be done outside of the classroom. So not only in your technical classes, depending on your major, you're going to have your specific courses that are specific to your major and what you're learning and going to get your degree in. But as they said, whether it's through internships, study abroad opportunities, I know both Emma and I did a lot of study abroads and some together. So I think different experiences like that just continue to be beneficial, especially those classes. I know, speaking to Iowa State specifically, other colleges I'm sure have some similar courses, but you know, the more career focused courses. So whether it's at Iowa State, we had an ANSI 110 and 210 and kind of went over how to write a cover letter, how to write a resume, interview skills, all of those skills that you are going to utilize no matter what role you're in, no matter what company you're at. Like Emma said, being able to communicate, write emails, you're talking with producers, you're talking with your employees, customers, you're always going to be communicating with people. So some of those important life skills that you can learn is going to be beneficial in any career that you end up in.
I'd echo what Dean had to say. Certainly, probably, but math was the first on my list for sure. You know, the business in general is math centric, in my opinion. You know, certainly science based, but math centric. You got to have a basic business writing skills. And then the other one that I had, certainly as you progress through a career, and that's something that I know that I felt like I didn't have early on was enough like accounting based learning. Like as you get into business, everything's a business and dollars and cents add up, and then trying to discern what, you know, how much money you're making on something is really important. And in knowing that earlier on would certainly be helpful, and knowing what I know now, right?
Awesome. Well, thank you. The next question is, how can students prepare for a career in the pork industry while still in middle school or high school?
I'll start here. As you know, the thing I would say is learn anywhere from anyone that will let you learn from them. So don't be afraid to ask a question or tag along with somebody. You know, I certainly was at an advantage because I grew up on a farm learning about pigs. So I had that. But really, I mean, in high school, I mean, I was working in a sow farm pretty early on. I mean, I got my start with, just washing pens, and then they give you more responsibility and you ask to do more, mainly because it's a labor intensive business and they need labor, right? So people that show up to work every day and know how to work hard, I certainly not for 1 second do I ever take for granted the amount of things I learned and can relate back to, my days working on a farm. It also learns that what you might not want to do. Maybe I don't want to wash pens for the rest of my life, right? So I think those are some big things. And then 4-H and FFA, there's a large amount of leadership opportunities that are available that sometimes folks are afraid to take advantage of, or just don't feel like that maybe that's the thing for them. There's some big advantages to doing those. Certainly from a hiring standpoint, I look for those things. I always look for those things. Someone that steps up and that's outside the norm, that's what I'm looking for. So I would say those are the things that I would look for.
Absolutely. I was going to say the same thing. Continue to ask questions and always be there and show up to help. And be willing to do that for free too. Being able to, like Jesse said, if maybe you don't come from a farm background, find someone in your community that does, ask questions, be willing to come out and help at nights or on the weekends, help sort pigs, load pigs. Like I said, just continue to ask questions. Continued exposure is going to be a great way to figure out just the business in itself, what goes on, and figure out if this is something you want to do, while you're doing that, you know, continue to network with those people, continue to try to get exposure at some different events, whether it's like Iowa Pork Congress, different events that you can go to and communicate with industry leaders and make that connection and continue to network, ask questions. Being present is a huge factor in getting experience and exposure to some people in the industry.
I would agree. I've been in my career for a short time, but I still work with farmers for free. It's a way for me to stay connected to the things that are happening in barn at slot level. So I would definitely encourage that. I'd also encourage to reach out to your teacher, or if there's something you think you're interested in. Both in this job at Iowa Pork as well as Smithfield, I worked with high school students who wanted to shadow. So whether that was walking through my meetings for the day, or it was visiting a producer, or as an on-farm tour, a lot of companies and employees and professionals are open to doing that. So if there's something you have interest in, I'd encourage you to reach out to an instructor, a teacher, a peer, to try and make a connection and find that opportunity.
I agree with just what everybody says. You guys are so lucky, because where I grew up, I wasn't fortunate enough to be able to get into 4-H or FFA. So that's very fortunate here. I mean, Dallas, Texas, if I said 4-H or FFA, they would just look at me and say, "What are you talking about?" Because, you know, there's several million people in that city. So that is a great avenue that people can go, and you don't have to drive too far from here. Looking at it at the chef's point of view, if you want to work with the product, go to a restaurant, get a job, go to Fairway and go to the butcher station, at Fairway, go, talk to anybody that'll let you, give you their knowledge. There's people out there, they just love to, teach you stuff. I mean, go to culinary school if that's the other route, because we will certainly deal with all these products that we're talking about today. I kind of feel a little different than the rest of you guys because you guys are from the production side and I'm from the protein on the plate side. So it's a little bit different avenue that I'm coming with. But just like I said, get a job, talk to people, and they'll give you their knowledge. And I said, go to the meat shop at Fairway or wherever, and talk to those guys. They'll help you out a lot too.
Hey, we have to have people who want pork on their plate in order for all of us to have a job. So that's super important. And at Iowa Pork, we work with Fairway and Hy-Vees and have connections and relationships with people who are able to put pork on a consumer's plate. So definitely valuable insight there as well.
Oh, I've got a lot of contacts through Iowa Pork on pork and different kinds of pork. Actually, I mean, it's not just it's not just one type of pig or one type of hog. There's tons of different types, and each type is raised a little bit different. Their diets are different. Their meats are different colors. It's really an amazing thing.
Definitely. Thank you, Emma. I definitely echo what she just said. So great. The next question is, what is your role in managing the cycle of production, working with farmers and producers? So I know a few of you would be able to answer that. So however you want to go about that.
Yeah, I think I have two different roles. My previous role with Smithfield was really being there to help producers take care of their pigs. And that was in a wean to finish style production cycle. So that was once the pigs left the sow, which was anywhere probably roughly 18 to 24 days old, they'd come to a barn where then I watched them with the farmer all the way until they were ready for market, which is about 270 pounds, 280 pounds. So we were looking at roughly 6 months and 2 different groups of pigs a year. That's kind of where I stood in the production cycle at Smithfield. Now, like I said, I'm not necessarily directly involved with the production cycle now, but I help producers through every phase, whether their barn is empty and they're moving manure, or they're trying to keep pigs healthy and warm when they're young, or figuring out how to get them market spaces in the industry and what's the easiest way to do that for them to make money in their business. So those are kind of the two ways in my experience I've played in the production cycle.
Yeah, so I would say my role in the production cycle, being in supply chain, I kind of am exposed to a majority of that cycle. So what I do now on the flow planning side, working with the sow farms to start at the very beginning of what they are going to be weaning, when they're going to be sending pigs, and then doing the planning of where those pigs are going to go and what sites of ours once those wean pigs or feeder pigs are sent. So obviously looking at health status and all the different factors that we have, and which site and which is going to place from that sow farm, which is going to be the best site to place that into. So continuing to work with our production managers very early on in the pig's lifetime. And then what I had done when I first started at the Maschhoffs, and still closely work with our marketing team, working with the production managers and our production partners, feeding those pigs all the way throughout their life until they're ready, market size and ready to be harvested. So then at that level, then pairing that up to which best of our customers and packing plants that we can send them to be harvested at. So like I said, kind of have the privilege to work in the department that I do, to kind of see that full cycle kind of come full circle.
At Smithfield, the part that I play in managing the production cycle, specifically with working with producers, so I work very closely with our sales group, and I guess the way I see it is that I work particularly in managing the supply and demand. What demand do we have coming from the sales side, either domestically or internationally, and then trying to convert that to something from a demand, or what we need for supply for hog supply, right? So trying to match that up. So, and then the way we do that is by writing contractual supply agreements with suppliers. So I'm there for information for those suppliers, to help them market their pigs. Sometimes it's information on from the sales side to help them a hedging program or something along that lines. But really, I'm part of the chain from the packer standpoint that says, how do we how do we make an amicable solution for both us and the producer, where both can be successful as we can be. So I would say that's my main portion of that part of that production cycle.
Great, thank you. So we were supposed to have a contract grower on with us today. Unfortunately, he could not make it. So Emma and Jesse, I'm going to kind of look to you for this next question. I still think it's a very important question for the kiddos to hear. But what does a typical contract look like for growers, and what happens if they're unable to fulfill their contract?
All right, so I don't work a lot with the production contracts per se as much, but typically, an agreement like that would be, there's a certain amount of time frame that you'd write, and then there's going to provide a certain amount of services during that time frame. I would say the biggest thing in any of these contractual arrangements, even like on our side when we're dealing with just hog production contracts, where they say, hey, we're going to sell you so many pigs, is communication. So the number one thing is that out of anything that we have, communication outside of the contract, or just a negotiating time, or when you got pigs and when you're going to ship pigs, is communication within that. If there's an issue, communicate it, right? So that's where I find, like, typically I know on anything where we have default on a contract, if there's communication in advance, there's a lot more leniency, and a lot of times the contract terms are at the discretion of the contract writer. So you would say, okay, did we have an issue that was preventable, something that's outside of their control, or was there something that wasn't, right? So and they would get into that. Sometimes there's other solutions that you can come up with. Sometimes it might mean that, hey, maybe we didn't need the space from that standpoint, or like from our standpoint, maybe we were able to replace the pig with somebody else's pig. So I think those are probably the biggest things. If you're not able to fulfill a contract, sometimes they're going to probably make you hold the contract terms, and there may be some defaults on that, but not always. And honestly, good communication well in advance will probably thwart most of that, because you're still dealing with people, right? So it's a people business. I know we deal with pigs every day, but it's still a people business. So.
Yeah, I would kind of say, and Lexi works for a company that also offers contracts to farmers, and a lot of the people who farm in Iowa also have contracts. It's a decision that they can make to raise pigs that takes on a little bit less risk, where they own the barns, but then the company owns the pigs. So then they sign a contract with a company like Smithfield or like Maschhoffs to be able to raise pigs. And similar to what Jesse said, as long as there's good communication about this is how we expect you to raise pigs, we make sure that those contract growers are raising pigs to those standards, that everything is working correctly, that they're in a good environment, and that those things are the attention to detail the farmers are taking. So usually it's a very mutually beneficial relationship. And there's people who will work on, like I said, the manure side all the way to the pig care side. So it's a way that we see a lot of people raising pigs in Iowa, and a lot of farmers that I work with every day raising pigs. And it's really just a way for both parties to be able to run a successful business.
Lexi, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to say an easy way to kind of think of it is almost like a hotel. The producers have the barn, they're providing the labor, the services, and the company that you have contract with is providing the pigs and feed. So kind of thinking about it that way, and like Emma and Jesse said, just having that contract and providing those services is kind of an easy way to think about what a contract looks like for a contract grower.
Awesome. Great. Okay, the next question is, what is one thing you wish you would have done in high school to prepare for your career? So is there anything that you guys wish you could go back and do in high school to help you prepare to where you are now?
Yeah, I learned to type. But just kind of what I reiterated earlier, pay attention to your math classes and your English classes and your writing. I'll tell you now, we're talking to high school kids, right? I get a lot of emails from students that think they are texting me. So, learn how to finish out your words and correct punctuation, and how to write a professional email that you're not sending a text to your buddies or whatever. I get a lot of that. So, just pay attention to your math and your English and your, take a family consumer science class. That'll teach you a lot there too. So I wish I'd paid a little more attention and learn to type.
For me, I wish, I guess, looking back on my experience, I wish I would have got more commercial experience in high school before I became allergic, knew I was allergic to pigs. Just again, to get more exposure. I grew up on the show pig side and was very familiar with that side of the industry. But I think, again, just learning at a younger age, wish I would have gotten some more experience in barn experience on the commercial side of the industry. But I said this last year when I was on this panel, and I'll say it again. I think to kind of echo what Dean was just saying, I think especially for that middle school, high school age, some of the best advice I can give, I guess, is just professionalism, and how you carry yourself and the reputation that you're gonna have for yourself is gonna start very young. So again, that they always say, if you don't want your grandma to see something on Facebook or on social media, don't post it. So just kind of keeping that in the back of your mind, what you're doing on social media, emails that you're sending to your teachers, your professors, just continuing professionalism at a young age and carrying that out, people will remember that. So again, just starting at a young age of being professional and carrying that on, because especially the ag industry is a very small world, and you're going to work with a lot of the same people through your career, even if they work at different companies, are involved in different sides of the business. The ag industry, and specifically the swine industry, is a small world. So just keeping that in mind.
I think for me, the two things I wish I would have been able to get involved in high school or would be 4-H and FFA. For me, I didn't have access to that, and I could have found it if I went to a neighboring town. So I think if there's something you're interested in, find ways to do that. Similar to what Lexi said, there's two kinds of people that someone will always remember, and it's someone who works really hard and someone who doesn't. So choose who you want to be and start training those habits as soon as you can, because people will remember that.
I would say the biggest thing is find something you like to do, right? I mean, you got to find something that you really like to do, and hopefully something that you can make money off later in life. So, that's probably the key part of it. It doesn't seem like as much work if you really like doing it. So I think that's a big key that, I think, you go down the path of like, hey, and you don't always know what's available, right? So once you get further along, certainly into college, and you learn that there's more careers available than you ever thought that were possible. But find something you like, take more opportunities, just like everyone said, for leadership. Those are important. Those are going to pay off in the long run, and get the best grades you can get, right? So get the best grades you can get. I know studying and schoolwork isn't always the best, but honestly, if it pays for part of your school and you don't have to pay for that later, do it now. It's a way easier up front. So those are my three key things to take away.
Thank you. All right, so the last question that I have is, why is pork a better option for families than other protein sources?
I could talk for a week on this one. It's such a versatile animal, pork, and it's not as expensive as beef. It's more budget friendly than beef. I can use just about every part of that pig. I mean, I can even eat the skin if I want to. I mean, I have, I can make a ham. I can make, something else out of that same cut of meat. Like I said earlier, my favorite cut of the meat is actually the copa, which is in the neck of the pig. And it's also a healthy alternative. The pork chop and the pork roast are leaner than, skinless chicken thighs, right? It's a leaner alternative. Pork tenderloin is just as lean as chicken breast, and it's just, again, it's so versatile. You can do so many things with it. It's just, I mean, it's one of my favorites. I'll be honest with you. I have a whole pig downstairs in my freezer that I get, parts out on a regular basis for, I can do all kinds of fun stuff with it. And then forget about charcuterie or curing and all that stuff that you can do with it that, you may not do with other stuff. So, and plus you get bacon. I mean, come on, right? So, I mean, again, it's inexpensive. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's extremely versatile. And if you're going the healthy option, there's cuts to the pig that are healthier than skinless chicken. So, I mean, where can you go wrong, right?
And how do you top what a chef has to say about why you should eat pork? I would agree with all of that, right? It's heart healthy, it's low in sodium, high in potassium, it keeps your blood pressure level. It's an affordable option. When you look at the meat case, you'll see pork, and it's always going to be in an affordable range, and that's important to us as an industry, to be able to get people fed who are hungry. So I think, yeah, on top of everything that you just heard, that would be my simple addition.
The only one thing I'd add is, I mean, I would say I certainly eat I eat pork at probably, I don't know, 60 to 75% of my meals are pork, and they have been for almost 20 years. So that's just my personal choice. But I would say the one thing that, I think that gets overlooked, pork is the safest of the proteins from a microbial standpoint. Just the way that they're processed, they're cleaner than chickens and both beef together. From a safeness standpoint, it's healthy. And like Chef Dean said, you can do a ton of things. No matter your taste, there's a pork cut that will fit your taste in one product or another. And it's pretty reasonably priced, right? So from that standpoint, you can buy a lot of pork for $10. I mean, you can buy a lot of pork for $10. So those would be my things. I mean, it's just, you can feed a lot of people with a minimal amount of money in pork.
Can I add something real quick? I forgot to say, sorry. The days of cooking pork to 160 degrees are over, right? And we need to get that across. Like Jesse was saying, there's so many things you can do with it, but I think the biggest thing is you can cook pork to 5. It's awesome. The days of the safe. It's such a safe food. You don't have to cook it to 160 or 180.
You took what I was gonna say, Dean. That it's an easy protein to cook as long as you do it right, and it tastes great. So yeah, I would encourage you guys to look at recipes online. I know Iowa Pork has a bunch of options and different articles for you to read on cooking pork, cooking it to the correct temperature. Yeah, it's an easy, affordable, safe protein source that you and your parents, if do it right, can do a really good job yourself.
Yeah, just to kind of tack on to what you guys said, I never really cooked a lot of pork loin, pork roast, stuff like that, pork chops even, until I started working here, because I was one of the skeptics that you had to cook pork to 160. And once I actually cooked pork to 145 and had it, it was amazing. And so now I cook pork all the time. So yeah, it's great. It's a great cut of meat all around, no matter what cut you have. Yeah, you really can't go wrong. But awesome. Well, is there anything else that any of you would like to add on about anything that we've talked about today to share with the kiddos?
I would just say thank you for your time. You've now been able to meet some people who work in the swine industry in multiple different facets. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out. If you need our contact information or you have any questions, we can find a way to get that to you. So thank you for letting us talk to you here for about 45 minutes to an hour, and we hope you learned something. But that's all I have to say to wrap up.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much again for being here and taking the time out of your day. We really appreciate it. So have a good day, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.